The hammer slipped from Daniel's sweat-slicked grip, slamming into his thumb with a crack that echoed like a gunshot through the half-finished frame of the house. Blood welled up instantly, hot and accusing, as if the wood itself had rejected him. In that split second, he saw his father's face, not the stern mill worker who died too young, but the ghost of approval he'd chased his whole life, now crumbling like the sawdust at his feet. "God damn it," Daniel muttered, dropping to his knees amid the nails and 2x4s, the summer heat of rural Ohio pressing down like a judgment. He'd poured every dime from his construction gigs into this blueprint, a sprawling 2-story colonial on the edge of town, the kind of home that screamed family man to anyone glancing from the highway. It was supposed to be his ticket in, the olive branch to a mother who'd barely spoken to him since the divorce, and brothers who treated him like the odd kid out. But as the pain throbbed up his arm, he wondered if building walls could ever fix the ones inside people. That's when the truck roared up the gravel drive, tires spitting dust like accusations. His brother Jake leaped out first, boots thudding heavy, face twisted in that familiar mix of beer-fueled bravado and something sharper, envy, maybe, or just plain meanness. "Look at you, Danny boy, plain architect. Mom's gonna flip when she sees this shit. You really think a fancy roof's gonna make up for?" "You know," Jake's voice trailed off, but the implication hung there, thick as the humidity. Daniel's stomach nodded. He'd kept it buried deep, the truth about who he was, who he loved in the quiet hours when the world wasn't watching. But secrets had a way of splintering, just like green wood under too much pressure. By the time the sun dipped low, painting the skeleton of the house in bloody oranges, the family had gathered, Mom in her faded sundress, clutching a Tupperware of potato salad like a shield, brothers Jake and Tommy cracking open cans on the tailgate, even Aunt Rita, who'd driven in from Cleveland with her gossip and her rosary. They toured the beams Daniel had raised single-handed, oohing and eyeing over the vaulted ceilings he'd sketched in stolen moments at job sites. "This is redemption, son," Mom whispered, squeezing his arm, her eyes misty. "Your daddy would have been proud. This house. It's us. It's home." Daniel nodded, forcing a grin that felt like chewing gravel. Pride swelled in his chest, fragile as bird bones, because for once, he wasn't the screw-up, the queer kid they'd whispered about after his high school phase with that theater boy, or the drifter who'd skipped college to swing a hammer instead. He was the builder, the fixer. And as they laughed around the fire pit that night, sparks dancing like fireflies, he almost believed it could last. But Ohio summers don't hold secrets. They ferment them. 2 weeks later, with the drywall going up and the bank breathing down his neck on the loan, Daniel met Matthew. It was at the county fair, amid the sticky sweet whirl of cotton candy and the low rumble of generators powering the rides. Daniel had wandered off from the family booth, where Jake was hawking discount tool kits, to nurse a beer alone by the Ferris wheel. That's when he saw him, tall, lean, with sun-bleached hair curling at the nape of his neck and a laugh that cut through the midway noise like sunlight through storm clouds. Matthew was manning the ring-toss booth, his flannel shirt rolled to the elbows, forearms corded from whatever honest work kept him wandering these parts. Their eyes locked over a stuffed bear prize, and Daniel felt it, the pull, magnetic and terrifying, like stepping off a ledge. "You aiming to win that, or just staring it down?" Matthew called, his voice warm with a drawl that hinted at Texas roots transplanted north. Daniel chuckled, heat creeping up his neck. "Depends. You rigging the game, cowboy? Only if you're bad at it." Matthew tossed him 3 rings, gratis, and for the next hour, they traded barbs and stories. Daniel about the house that was eating his soul, Matthew about drifting from ranch to rig, chasing sunsets and dodging commitments. By the time the fireworks cracked overhead, painting the sky in reckless bursts, Daniel's hand had found Matthew's in the shadows of the midway, fingers lacing like they'd always belonged. It was reckless. That first kiss tasted like cheap ale and possibility, stolen behind the hay bales as the crowd cheered distant booms. Daniel's heart hammered, not from fear exactly, but from the ache of finally claiming something real. Matthew pulled back, eyes searching his. "You sure about this, Dan? Small towns got long memories." "I'm sure," Daniel lied, because the house was half built, his family half closer, and this felt like the missing blueprint. They met in secret after that, carving out stolen hours in the cab of Matthew's beat-up Ford or under the stars on the bluffs overlooking the Ohio River. Matthew was a poet in work boots, quoting Kerouac between bites of gas station burritos, his touch gentle but sure, like he knew exactly how to mend the fractures Daniel hid. "You're building more than walls, you know," Matthew murmured one night, tracing the scars on Daniel's knuckles from errant nails. "You're building a life. Don't let 'em tear it down." Daniel wanted to believe him. God, he did. But the house demanded everything, weekends lost to subcontractors, evenings poring over invoices by lamplight. His family hovered closer, their approval a drug he couldn't quit. Mom started dropping hints about settling down proper, Jake ribbing him about finding a good girl to fill those extra bedrooms. And Aunt Rita? She caught the glow in his eyes one Sunday dinner, her lips pursing like she'd tasted something sour. "That shine ain't from sawdust. Boy, who's got you smilin' like a fool?" Daniel deflected with a laugh, but the seed of dread took root. He pushed Matthew away those weeks, canceling plans with texts that reeked of excuses. Sites flooded. Rain check. Matthew understood, or said he did, but his calls grew sparse, his voice edged with that drifter's wariness. Then came the betrayal, swift as a snapped beam. It was Labor Day weekend, the house nearly done, siding up, roof gleaming under the harvest moon. Daniel had invited the family for the reveal, a barbecue under the new pergola, complete with string lights and a playlist of Springsteen. Matthew was there too, uninvited but bold, leaning against the fence in his best jeans, nursing a soda like he belonged. Daniel's pulse raced at the sight. He'd planned to tell them all, after the toasts, when the beer had softened the edges. "This is my home. This is my heart. Both of you." But Jake saw it first. The way Daniel's gaze lingered, the brush of shoulders that lasted a beat too long. "Holy shit," he slurred, loud enough to turn heads. "Danny's got himself a boyfriend? In our house." Laughter rippled, mean and jagged, until Mom's face drained white. "Daniel? Tell me he's jokined." The air thickened, the sizzle of burgers on the grill mocking the silence. Daniel stepped forward, voice steady as he could manage. "It's true, Matthew. He's everything." He reached for Matthew's hand, but Jake was already moving, shoving between them with a bellow. "You built this for us, for family, and you repay it by this, parading your filth in front of Mom." Words flew like splinters, freak, disappointment, get out until Tommy grabbed Jake, but not before a fist connected with Matthew's jaw, sending him sprawling into the grass. Daniel lunged, tackling his brother, the world narrowing to grunts and thuds, blood mixing with the dew. Stop. This is my home. Our home. But it wasn't. Not anymore. Mom's voice cut through, shrill and final. You ain't no son of mine if this is what you are. Pack your tools and go. This house. It was for family. Real family. She turned away, Aunt Rita murmuring prayers like curses, and Jake spat on the ground where Matthew rose, wiping blood from his lip. Daniel stood there, chest heaving, the lights he'd strung twinkling like cruel stars. Matthew touched his shoulder. Soft. Dan. We gotta go. They drove through the night, Matthew's truck eating miles toward Cincinnati. The city lights a hazy promise. Daniel stared out the window, the house shrinking in the rear view, a monument to his shattered illusions. I built it for them, he whispered, tears carving tracks down his dust-streaked face. To be accepted. And they threw me out like trash. Matthew pulled over at a rest stop, the engine ticking cool. He cupped Daniel's face, thumbs brushing away salt. Then we build our own. You and me. No blueprints needed. For a while, it worked. They crashed in a walk-up in Over the Rhine. Daniel picking up foreman gigs on high-rises downtown. Matthew tending bar at a dive that catered to the artsy crowd. Queer kids and poets nursing dreams with whiskey. Nights blurred into lovers' tangles. Sheets twisted around bodies that fit like puzzle pieces finally clicked home. Daniel laughed more. Real laughs that bubbled up unbidden. And Matthew's songs, scribbled on napkins, started mentioning forever. But Ohio clung like damp rot. Jake called once, voice thick with hangover regret. Come back, bro. Mom's sorry. Just tone it down. Daniel hung up, but the hook sank deeper. And Matthew? He started vanishing. Late shifts turning into dawn returns. His phone buzzing with texts he silenced quick. Just work, he'd say, but his eyes dodged, that drifter spark flickering back to life. The climax hit on a frostbitten November evening, the kind where the wind off the river bites like betrayal. Daniel came home early from a site delay, arms full of takeout from that Thai place Matthew loved, dreaming of a quiet night in. The apartment door creaked open to murmurs, low, intimate from the bedroom. His stomach dropped like a plummeting scaffold. There was Matthew, tangled in their sheets with him, a bar regular, some trust fund artist with tattoos snaking up olive skin and a laugh that echoed too familiar. Babe. Daniel's sweet, but he's chained to this place. We could go west. You and me, California. Real freedom. Daniel froze in the doorway, the bags slipping from his numb fingers, pad thai splattering like blood across the threshold. Matthew's head snapped up, horror blooming in his eyes. Dan, shit. It's not, but it was. Every late night, every dodged question, betrayal, raw and reeking of cheap cologne. You said forever, Daniel choked, voice cracking like cheap plywood. I left everything for this. For us. Matthew scrambled up, boxers askew, hands out like placating a spooked horse. I panicked. Okay, this town's suffocating. You're building empires, and I'm just drifting. He gets that. No strings. The artist smirked from the bed, all smug entitlement, and something in Daniel snapped. He grabbed the nearest thing, a lamp, brass and heavy, and hurled it, shattering against the wall in a spray of glass and sparks. Get out, both of you. His roar echoed down the hall, drawing neighbors' peeks, but he didn't care. Matthew dressed in frantic jerks, the artist slinking after, muttering about drama queens. Alone. Daniel sank to the floor amid the wreckage, sobs racking him like aftershocks. The house he'd built haunted him still, its perfect lines a lie, just like this love. He'd chased acceptance from family, from Matthew, from himself, and ended up hollowed out, echoes in empty rooms. Days blurred into a fog of cheap motels and bar stools, Daniel nursing hangovers that tasted like regret. He drove back to the family plot once, under cover of night, parking at the curb where trash cans overflowed with party remnants. The house glowed warm, laughter spilling from open windows, Jake's engagement bash, from the looks of the balloons. He sat there, engine off, the chill seeping in, feeling like the discarded Ken at his feet. Dented, overlooked, waiting for the truck. That's when his phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Saw your post on that contractor board. Need a hand on a Reno in Covington? Not Matthew. A new start, maybe. Daniel stared at the screen, thumb hovering. The wind howled, rattling leaves like judgments, but for the first time, he felt the stir of something solid, not acceptance from others, but from the man staring back in the dash reflection. Scars and all. He typed back, yeah. When do we start? The first snow dusted Cincinnati like powdered sugar on a stale donut. Pretty from afar, but gritty underfoot. Daniel shoveled the walk of the Covington Victorian he'd taken on, the kind of gut job that promised distraction if not redemption. The client was a widow named Mrs. Hargrove, sharp-tongued and soft-hearted, who'd lost her husband to the bottle and her savings to bad investments. Fix it up nice, boy, she'd said at their meet, eyeing his calloused hands. Make it feel like home again. Lord knows mine's gone cold. He'd nodded, throat tight, because home was a word that burned now. The betrayal with Matthew lingered like a phantom limb. Aches in quiet moments, jolts when he'd spot a similar truck on the interstate. But work was a hammer, pounding it down, board by board. He hired a small crew, Rico, a burly ex-con with a knack for plumbing and a rosary dangling from his rear view. Lena, a wiry electrician who'd fled Kentucky coal country with stories of fire and brimstone. And then, unexpectedly, a kid named Eli who showed up with a ladder and a grin, barely out of his teens but steady as oak. Eli was the wild card, freckled, floppy-haired, with a stutter that melted when he talked tools. I seen your ad, he'd stammered that first day, backpack slung low. Need extra hands? Daniel had sized him up, seeing echoes of his younger self, hungry, hopeful, hiding hurts behind hustle. Yeah. Start with demo. Don't break nothing you can't fix. As weeks bled into winter, the house transformed, rotted joists replaced, walls peeled back to reveal hidden murals from the 20s, brass fixtures polished to a gleam. Daniel lost himself in the rhythm. Saws whine, nail guns pop, the satisfying thud of drywall sheets sliding into place. Mrs. Hargrove brought casseroles, her eyes twinkling when she'd linger to watch him work. You got a gentle way with old bones, she'd say. Reminds me of my Henry, before the whiskey one. One evening, as sleet lashed the windows, the crew gathered in the kitchen, what was left of it, anyway, for beers and bullshit. Rico regaled them with tales of lockup lingo. Lena sketched circuit dreams on napkins. And Eli watched Daniel with that quiet intensity, like he was memorizing blueprints. Why, you ever build something just for you? The kid asked, voice soft over the clink of bottles. Daniel paused, bottle halfway to his lips, the question hooking deep. Tried once. Backfired. He thought of the Ohio Colonial, its beams strong but soulless now, of Matthew's laugh echoing in empty arms. Guess I'm still figuring that out. Eli nodded, eyes wise beyond years. And my folks kicked me out last spring. Said I was, broken. Like a circuit that don't light right. He shrugged, but the hurt flickered. Lena reached over, squeezing his shoulder. Rico grunted approval. Daniel felt it then. A kinship, unspoken but steel-strong. These weren't blood, but they were something better, chosen, forged in sweat and shared scars. That night, alone in his motel room, the one with the lumpy bed and the neon sign bleeding red through thin curtains, Daniel pulled out the sketchpad he'd salvaged from the apartment purge. Pages of half-formed ideas. A cabin by the river, windows framing sunrises. A loft in the city, exposed brick and herb gardens on the fire escape. Dreams, not blueprints. But for the first time since the curbside vigil, his pencil moved with purpose, lines curving like rivers toward possibility. Spring thawed the ground with tentative greens, and the Covington job wrapped under blue skies that felt like mercy. Mrs. Hargrove threw a housewarming, string lights in the garden, a jazz quartet sawing lazy tunes, neighbors toasting with mint juleps. Daniel stood on the porch, surveying the glow within, laughter spilling out, the murals alive under fresh paint. You did good, son, she murmured, pressing a check into his palm generous, unasked. Henry'd say you brought the heart back. He drove back across the bridge that night, the Ohio glittering like fool's gold. His phone buzzed, Jake again. Voicemail this time. Mom's sick. Danny. Cancer. Come home. We need you. The words landed like a gut punch, old wounds ripping fresh. He deleted it, but sleep evaded, ghosts crowding the dark. His father's grave, Matthew's cologne on a stranger's skin, the trash can's cold metal under his palms. By morning, resolve hardened. He texted Eli, got a lead on a flip in Lexington. You in? The kid replied instant. Hell yeah. Where do I sign? They headed south, the truck loaded with tools and takeout, radio crooning Dylan about ramblin' men. Eli chattered about comic books and constellations, his stutter easing with every mile. Daniel listened, really listened, feeling the weight lift not gone, but shared. In Lexington, the house was a charmer gone to seed. Sagging porch, wallpaper peeling like old skin, but bones solid, waiting for hands that knew care. Word spread in the queer underground. Craigslist ads morphing into Facebook groups. Whispers in bars about the builder who took on projects with heart. Gigs piled up. A tiny home for a trans couple fleeing Bible Belt backlash. A garage conversion for a drag queen saving for her escape to NYC. Daniel's crew grew. Lena brought her girlfriend, a tattoo artist who inked free sleeves for the unhoused. Rico mentored apprentices from the shelter. They weren't rich, scraping by on ramen and royalties from Mrs. Hargrove's referrals, but they were building. Not just houses, but havens. Matthew resurfaced that summer, a ghost in khakis at a hardware store in Louisville. Daniel was pricing lumber, Eli trailing with a cart of fittings, when the aisle narrowed to confrontation. Dan, Matthew said, voice roughened by distance, eyes shadowed. Heard you're making a name. Good for you. Daniel's grip tightened on the 2x4, pulse thundering. Eli hung back, sensing the storm. What do you want? Matt? Closure? I already got that. Curbside. Matthew winced, running a hand through hair gone longer, wilder. I fucked up. Bad. That guy. It was a panic spiral. But seeing you now, you're free. I ain't. The words twisted, half apology, half envy. Daniel saw it then. The drifter's curse, chasing horizons that never held. Yeah, well, freedom's got splinters. But I hammer through. He brushed past, Eli falling in step, but not before Matthew's whisper. Proud of you, cowboy. The stung. That pride late, tainted, but Daniel let it fuel him. Back at the Lexington site, he cranked the radio, blasting Motown to drown doubts, and taught Eli how to scribe a perfect miter. Measure twice, cut once, he said. Life too. Fall brought festivals, Kentucky bourbon trails winding through amber hills, bonfires crackling with stories. Daniel's phone filled with photos. Crew selfies amid rafters. Mrs. Hargrove visiting with pies. Eli's first solo install beaming gap-toothed. One night, at a queer arts fair in Frankfurt, he met Theo, a barista with locks and a sketchbook full of queer saints, eyes that saw straight to the marrow. They talked for hours over cider, Theo's laugh a melody that didn't demand perfection. You build walls, Theo said, tracing Daniel's palm. But what about bridges? Daniel leaned in, tentative. Working on it. Their first date was blueprints and lattes. Theo sketching murals for the next flip. Daniel confessing the Ohio folly over croissants. No secrets. No seats by the trash. Just two men. Flawed and fitting. Mapping a path forward. But conflict brewed. Inevitable as termites in old wood. Jake called again. This time desperate, mom's bad. Hospice. Says she wants to see the house you built. With you in it. Daniel's world tilted. The family pull. Gravitational and cruel. Yanking him back to roots rotten with rejection. He drove north alone. Leaving Theo with a kiss and a promise. One night. Then home for real. The colonial loomed unchanged. A time capsule of pain. Inside, the air was sterile. Mom frail in her armchair by the window. Jake hovering like a bad habit. Danny, she rasped, hand trembling toward his. I was wrong. Scared. But this house is still yours. We kept it empty, waiting, tears pricked, but betrayal's echo drowned them. You sat me by the trash. Ma said I wasn't family. She nodded, eyes wet. I know. Cancer's got me thinking clear. Love don't build like hate tears down. Forgive me, he knelt, the weight crushing. Forgiveness wasn't a switch. More like patching drywall over mold, hoping it holds. I'll try, he whispered. For Dad. For us. She passed at dawn, the house sighing with her last breath. Daniel stayed for the funeral, black suits and casseroles. Brothers awkward with hugs, then packed a box of tools and ghosts, driving south with the sun at his back. Theo waited on the porch of their new rental. A shotgun shack Daniel had fixed up, rainbow flag fluttering defiant. You okay? Theo asked, pulling him close. Not yet, Daniel admitted, burying his face in the crook of Theo's neck. But getting there. Brick by brick. Winter wrapped Kentucky in a hush, the kind that amplifies heartbeats and unspoken fears. Daniel and Theo's life settled into a rhythm. Mornings tangled in flannel sheets, coffee steaming on the counter while Daniel sketched elevations and Theo inked protest posters for the local queer center. The shack became theirs, exposed beams strung with Edison bulbs, Theo's saints watching over Daniel's tool bench, a shared garden plotting herbs against the cold. But the call from Jake lingered, a splinter under skin. She's gone. But the house, Jake had said at the graveside, voice cracking over plastic cups of punch. It's paid off. Yours if you want it. Start over. Temptation nod, return to Ohio, claim the colonial as redemption, build a family there with Theo. But roots could strangle as much as nourish, and Daniel knew the town's whispers would curl like smoke around any happiness he planted. Eli sensed the unrest, cornering him one frosty morning at the next job, a duplex for a pair of veterans turning it into a halfway house. Why you're twitchy, boss? Like a live wire. The kid was growing into his frame, stutter fading to a lilt, but his eyes still held that puppy loyalty. Daniel hammered a stud into place, the vibration jarring loose truths. Family stuff. Old house. Thinking about selling. Or going back. Eli whistled low, prying nails with practiced ease. Be back to the trash bin? Nah. You built better here. Me included. The words landed soft but sure, a reminder that family wasn't forged in blood or blueprints alone. It was in the crew that showed up, rain or shine. That night, Daniel burned the Ohio sketches in the fire pit, ashes swirling like released sins. Theo watched, silent, then pulled him inside for slow dances to Coltrane, bodies swaying to a beat of healing. Spring unfurled with opportunity, a big contract from the city, rehabbing a block of abandoned row houses in Louisville's Russell neighborhood, turning blight into affordable homes for LGBTQ+ youth aging out of foster care. Daniels bid one on heart as much as numbers. The councilwoman, a butch dyke with a handshake like iron, clapped his back. Heard about your work. This ain't just bricks. It's belonging. The project consumed them. Dawn starts with thermoses of Theo's chicory brew, evenings lit by work lights as Lena wired smart systems for accessibility. Rico mentoring teen apprentices from the center, kids with stories etched in wary glances and fresh ink. Eli thrived, leading a demo crew, his confidence blooming like the dogwoods lining the street. Daniel walked the site daily, clipboard in hand, but his eyes lingered on the transformations. A bedroom painted mural bright by Theo's crew, a community kitchen with long tables for shared meals. One kid, Jamie, a non-binary teen with blue streaks and a sketchpad habit, shadowed him, asking about load-bearing walls and load-bearing loves. How'd you know you were? You, Jamie whispered one lunch, picking at a sandwich. Daniel sat on an upturned bucket, the sun slanting gold. Didn't, for years. Built walls to hide it. Family found out, kicked me to the curb. Literally, he chuckled, bittersweet. But that fall taught me to build up, not out. Jamie nodded, fierce. Mine too. Foster system's a joke. But this place, it's a start. Pride swelled, unfamiliar and fierce, not the fragile kind from Ohio barbecues, but earned, communal. Theo captured it in a mural on the rec room wall. Figures hand in hand against a skyline of scaffolds, colors defiant. But conflict simmered beneath the progress. Matthew texted sporadically, missed the road. You ever think about it? Stirring silt in still waters. And Jake? He drove down unannounced one humid June afternoon, truck rattling with apologies and a bottle of bourbon. Brought this for old times, he said, standing awkward in the site trailer, Eli eyeing him wary from the door. Daniel wiped sawdust from his hands, Theo lingering in the background like a shield. What are you really here for, Jake? His brother shifted, boots scuffing linoleum. The house. Sold it to some developer, yuppies wantin' a flip. Got your cut. He slid an envelope across the desk, fat with cash. And Mom left a letter. For you. The envelope burned, but Daniel took it, waving off the bourbon. They talked halting, Jake admitting his own cracks, a marriage fraying, regrets over that punch thrown years back. I was scared, Danny, of losing the family I knew. But losing you? That's worse. Theo stepped in then, gracious with coffee, diffusing the tension with questions about carpentry. By dusk, Jake was helping hoist trusses, laughing rusty with Eli, the bourbon untouched. As he left, hugging Daniel fierce, he muttered, proud of this. Of you. Bring your Theo. Sometime. Meet the chaos. The letter waited till midnight, Daniel unfolding it by lamplight, Theo's head on his shoulder. My boy, it read, script shaky. I built walls too, fear, mostly. Yours are stronger. Love you, always. Make your home wide enough for all. Tears blurred ink, but release followed, a dam breaking gentle. Summer peaked in heat waves and breakthroughs, the row houses ribbon cut under July fireworks, families moving in with boxes and hope. Daniel spoke at the dedication, voice steady, home ain't given. It's built. With hands, hearts, and a hell of a lot of forgiveness. Applause thundered, Jamie hugging him tight, the mayor pressing a plaque into his palm. But betrayal's shadow stretched long. August brought a curveball. The developer from Ohio, sniffing around Louisville for expansions, offered Daniel a partnership, big money, branded builds, a return to the colonial life. You're a natural, the suit said over steak at a downtown chop house. Family enterprise. Your brothers could join. Temptation whispered. Stability, legacy, a seat at the table, not by the trash. He drove home conflicted, Theo waiting with takeout and intuition sharp as a chisel. What's eating you? Daniel spilled it over lo mein, fork stabbing noodles. It's everything I chased once. Acceptance. On their terms. Theo set his chopsticks down. Ice steady. And on yours? This. He gestured to the shack. The sights. The crew texts buzzing. This is yours. Don't trade it for a crown of thorns. The words anchored, but doubt festered. That night, sleep evaded. Dreams tangled Ohio beams with Matthew's ghost, Jake's punch landing anew. Morning brought clarity or crisis. Eli burst into the kitchen, face ashen, phone clutched white-knuckled. B-boss, Rico's in trouble. Cops raided his place, old warrant for he cleaned up. They're deporting him back to Mexico. The world narrowed to outrage. Rico, the rock, the mentor, cuffed and shipped like contraband? Daniel rallied the crew. Lawyers consulted via frantic calls. Petitions drafted on kitchen tables. Theo mobilized his art network. Murals springing up downtown. Justice for Rico in bold strokes. Protests brewed. Candles flickering under City Hall arches. Chants echoing off brick. Daniel stood at the front. Megaphone heavy. Voice raw. He built with us, not just houses, but lives. You tear him down. You tear us all. Media swarmed. The story going viral, builders fight for his own. Queer heart bleeding blue collar. Jake even showed. Sign in hand. Brothers shoulder to shoulder for once. The climax crested in a hearing room thick with tension. Rico in orange jumpsuit, eyes haunted but unbroken. Daniel testified, words pouring like concrete. Family forged, not born. Betrayal's sting paling to loyalty's fire. The judge, stern but swayed, granted a stay, paperwork a lifeline. After, in the courthouse shadow, Rico gripped Daniel's hand, tears carving tracks. Hermano, you saved me. Nah, Daniel said, clapping his back. We did. Fall gilded the leaves, the developer forgotten, the row houses thriving with laughter. Daniel proposed to Theo on a scaffold at dawn. Ring a hammered copper band, simple as truth. Build forever with me? Theo's yes was a kiss that tasted like home. Yet humanity's arc bent slow. Winter whispered warnings. A call from Aunt Rita. Tommy in a wreck. Bad. Daniel drove north again. Theo beside. The colonial sold but memories intact. At the hospital, beeps and bleach, he held his brother's hand, Jake pacing like old times. We're idiots, Tommy slurred through pain meds. All of us. But family's messy. Stays anyway. Forgiveness flowed freer now, a river carving canyons. They buried Tommy in spring, the grave beside Mom's. Daniel scattering sawdust like blessings. Bits of the life he'd built, shared. Back south, the crew expanded. A co-op now, Daniel and Sons remodels, plaque-bearing names, Eli's stutter gone, Lena's circuits lighting paths. Matthew faded to a postcard from Cali. Found my road. Yours was better. One evening, as fireflies danced, Daniel and Theo sat on the porch, hands laced, watching the sunset bleed pink. We made it, Theo murmured. Daniel squeezed, scars faint but felt. Yeah. Seat at the head now, and in the quiet, he knew. Acceptance wasn't built for him, it was built by him. Wide and welcoming, trash bins long behind. The co-op's first anniversary fell on a sweltering August eve, the kind where cicadas buzzed like faulty wiring and the air hung heavy with promise. Daniel and Sons had outgrown the shack, now a bustling yard on the edge of Lexington, trailers humming with plans for a dozen projects. Eco-homes for climate refugees, artist lofts in dying malls, safe houses strung along the Appalachian Trail for runaways. The crew gathered under strung lights, picnic tables groaning with ribs and slaw, bluegrass fiddles wailing from a boombox. Eli Foreman now, with a girlfriend who built drones, raised a mason jar of moonshine. To Daniel, the guy who turned trash into treasure. And to all us misfits who call him family. Cheers erupted, glasses clinking like hammer strikes, Theo's arm warm around Daniel's waist. But beneath the revelry, undercurrents swirled. Jake had integrated slow, weekend visits turning to part-time gigs, his rough edges sanding smooth under Rico's patient tutelage. Never thought I'd swing a hammer for queers, he joked once, beer loose, earning a playful shove from Lena. Yet progress had teeth. A client pulled out last month, citing family values after spotting the pride flag on the truck. Whispers in hardware aisles, glares from passing pickups, small-town static, crackling louder as the co-op's profile rose. Daniel felt it most in quiet hours, when Theo sketched late and the house creaked confessions. We're poking the bear, he'd say, tracing the scar on his thumb from that long-ago hammer slip. Theo would counter with facts, grants pouring in, youth center partnerships blooming, but Daniel's dreams tangled with Ohio ghosts. Mom's letter yellowing in a drawer, Tommy's grave mounded fresh. Theo proposed balance. A road trip west, chasing Matthew's old haunts, reclaiming the horizon. See the country you built in your heart, he urged, packing the truck with coolers and canvases. They hit the road in September, leaves turning crimson as they snaked through Tennessee hollers and Missouri plains, radio alternating Springsteen anthems with podcasts on queer history. In Nashville, they crashed with a muralist collective, Theo trading inks for crash pads, Daniel spotting structural sins in honky-tonk bars. One night, over hot chicken that seared like truth, a drag queen named Ruby clocked them from the stage. "Y'all got that builder glow," she purred post-show, sequins shedding like glitter confetti. "But honey, love's like a load-bearing wall, one crack, and it all tumbles." Her words haunted the miles to Oklahoma, where dust devils danced like demons. They camped by a reservoir, stars thick as nail heads, Theo's head in Daniel's lap as he confessed, "Sometimes I worry I'm the crack. Too soft for your steel." Daniel's heart clenched, pulling him close. "You're the mortar, Theo." Holding it all. Their lovemaking that night was fierce, tender bodies mapping forgiveness under a blanket of Milky Way. Texas welcomed with sprawl and sizzle. Austin's vibe a bomb. Food trucks slinging tacos, live music bleeding from every pore. They volunteered at a queer youth build, hammering tiny homes with kids who'd fled border town bigotry. One boy, Miguel, mirrored Eli's early hunger, eyes wide at Daniel's demo. "You ever get kicked out for this?" he asked, gesturing vague. "Yep," Daniel said, handing him a level. "Built my way back. You will too." The high faded in New Mexico's Red Rock silence, where betrayal revisited like monsoon rain. A diner stop in Santa Fe, coffee black as regret, and there was Matthew, leaned at the counter, Stetson tipped low, flirting with the waitress. Fate's cruel joke, or karma's hook. Daniel froze, mug halfway to lips, Theo tensed beside. Matthew turned, recognition dawning slow, then sharp. "Cowboys," he drawled, sliding onto a stool uninvited. "Fancy meetin' you here." Awkward small talk crackled. Matthew's ranch gig, a boyfriend named Cruz who stuck. Miracle of miracles. Theo played diplomat, charming with questions, but Daniel's jaw ticked, old wounds weeping. "You look good," Matthew said finally, eyes lingering. "Settled. Happy. Built it that way," Daniel replied, voice even. "You," Matthew's grin faltered, fingers drumming the formica. "Chasin' still. But seeing you makes a man think twice." They parted with handshakes, no numbers exchanged, but the encounter lodged like shrapnel. Miles later, in a Taos motel with adobe walls cool against fevered skin, Daniel shattered. He gets to drift. Free. I chained myself for. What? Theo held him through the sobs, rain pattering the tin roof. For this. The kids who need your hammer more than his ghost. Dawn brought mending, Theo's sketches of their future home, a sprawling eco-village off-grid, rooms for crew, gardens for dreams. California crowned the trip. Big Sur cliffs dropping to Pacific roar, San Francisco's Castro pulsing with parades and pride. They marched in the October fog, signs high, build love, not walls, Theo's art on banners, Daniel's crew donating proceeds from a Cali collab. In a mission taqueria, buzzed on margaritas, Theo knelt amid salsa splatters. Marry me proper? Rings and vows and all. Daniel's yes was a roar, drowned in cheers from strangers turned family. Eastbound, the truck heavier with souvenirs and resolve. They detoured north to Ohio one last time. The old lot, once the colonial's throne, now sprouted a strip mall, neon signs mocking memory. Daniel stood in the gravel, Theo's hand anchor. "Goodbye," he whispered, scattering soil from the new garden plot. Back home, wedding plans bloomed. A co-op backyard affair. Jake walking Daniel down an aisle of salvaged beams. Eli best man with a speech stutter free. Rico officiated, rosary tucked away, his green card framed on the mantle. Lena DJ'd circuits of disco, Jamie's mural the backdrop, saints dancing queer. But humanity's not linear. Climax brewed in winter's chill. A storm hit hard. Tornadoes carving Kentucky like a dull saw. Co-op sites battered. A youth home roof caved. Daniel rallied. Crews deploying like soldiers, tarps and generators. Hands blistered in the fray. One rescue. A teen trapped in rubble. Jamie's mentee tore at him, pulling the boy free with Theo's steady light. Media frenzy followed. Queer builders heroes. Headlines blaring resilience. But backlash snarled. Hate mail scrawled Sodom's hammers. A truck torched in the yard. Jake took the brunt. Staying nights. Shotgun by the door. "Ain't leavin' my brother to the wolves," he growled. The betrayal came subtle. A board member, poached from the developer days, skimming grants for consulting fees. Discovery hit like a beam drop. Funds short. Youth projects stalled. Trust fractured. Daniel confronted in the trailer. Voice thunder. "We build honest." "You tear that down." The man sneered. Suit crisp. "Business, Daniel. Not charity. Your rainbow crusade's cute, but margins matter." Fired on the spot. But damage lingered, creditors circling. Crew morale cracking. Daniel paced nights. Theo's arms insufficient against the void. "I built this for them," he raged. "And it crumbles anyway." Theo pulled him to the mirror. Hands on shoulders. "Look. Scars make stronger joints. Rebuild." They did transparency audits. Community fundraisers. Jake's mill contacts donating steel. Rico uncovered more. The boardman's ties to Ohio Old Guard. Sabotage rooted in bigotry. Testimony flew. Lawsuits landed. The co-op emerging leaner. Fiercer. Spring's thaw mirrored renewal. Wedding under dogwoods. Vows exchanged amid cheers. In sweat and storm. "I choose you." Jake teared up. Toasting to family. Fucked up and fixed. The ending unfolded human. No tidy bows. Co-op thriving. But scars visible. Matthew's occasional cards. A congrats inked casual. Jake's visit steady. But Ohio calls rare. Daniel aged into wisdom. Gray threading his temples. Teaching apprentices. Build for the fall. It comes. One dusk. On the porch with Theo. Now silvered too. They watched Eli's kid chase fireflies. The village humming alive. "Worth it?" Theo asked. Head on shoulder. Daniel kissed his temple. Every nail. And in the fading light. Acceptance settled. Not chaste. But chosen. A home wide as the horizon. Years layered like courses of brick. Mortar of memory binding them firm. Daniel and Sons co-op span states now. Satellites in Cincinnati and Nashville. A flagship village in Kentucky's hills. Solar-paneled cabins circling a communal hearth. Gardens yielding enough for food banks. A workshop echoing with youth hammers. Daniel, 45, moved slower, knees protesting ladders, but his eye for structure sharper, teaching via walkie from the truck. Theo's art wove through it all. Murals on every build, a gallery in the village center showcasing queer narratives, portraits of Rico's grandkids, Eli's wedding portraits, Jamie's coming-out comics. Their marriage, a decade etched, held like heartwood, arguments over budgets flaring hot, cooling to compromises, travels west annual, reclaiming roads with Cruz and Matthew, friendships forged from ashes. Jake integrated full divorced, sober, running the Ohio outpost with a boyfriend of his own, a quiet mechanic named Ben. Who dey thunk? He'd laugh at reunions, clinking beers. Your rainbow rubbed off, family holidays blended, Aunt Rita's prayers softer, now including Theo in grace. Graves tended joint, stories shared over pie. But drama's not retired. It simmers. A 2030 heat dome scorched the Midwest. Wildfires licking Appalachia's toes. Co-op crews evacuating families from carbon-charred homes. Daniel coordinated from Command Central. Voice hoarse on radios. Lena, secure the ridge site. Tarps on the gardens. Theo documented the fury. Drones capturing Inferno abstracts. Proceeds funding rebuilds. In the fray, conflict reignited. A federal grant for climate-resilient queer housing. Clawed from bureaucratic dens. Threatened by a senator's rider, anti-LGBTQ clauses slipped in like termites. Purity provisions. The aides sneered in D.C. halls, where Daniel lobbied. Theo's portfolio under arm. Can't fund sin with taxpayer sin. Rage boiled, but Daniel channeled it. Press tours, op-eds in the Times. Building tomorrow. Brick by biased law. Alliances with civil rights vets. Protests swelled. Matthew flying in for a rally. Sign high, love loads better. The rider fell. Grant secured. But the fight scarred. Death threats scrawled on village gates. A crew member's truck keyed with slurs. Betrayal struck intimate. Eli, golden boy turned partner, confessed an affair mid-level manager from a supplier, temptation in hotel lobbies on away jobs. It was stupid, he sobbed in Daniel's office, girlfriend waiting tearful outside. The road pulls like it did you. Daniel's world reeled. Echoes of Matthew's motel ghost. You were the kid I saved from the curb, he said. Voice steel. Now you torch your own? Eli begged. Leave. Demotion. Therapy. Daniel, Theo's counsel anchoring. Chose grace. Sabbatical. Counseling mandated. Trust rebuilt board by board. We all fall, he told the crew assembly. But co-ops lift. The climax crested in a nor'easter's wake. 2035. Village flooded. The hearth house submerged. Archives afloat in muck. Daniel waded chest deep. Theo lashed to his back, salvaging servers and sketches. Not again, Daniel growled. Water biblical. Not this home, rescue chopper's word. But loss tallied. A youth mentor drowned. Gardens drowned. Funds drained. Grief council fires burned nightly. Stories shared like blueprints for endurance. Jake drove down. Ben in tow. Hauling generators. Matthew wired from Cali. Crowdfunding millions. Rebuild became ritual. Youth wielding hammers on new foundations. Murals repainted brighter. Daniel's speech at the rededication. Voice weathered. Floods come. Betrayals bite. But we layer on stronger, wider. For the ones by the trash. Waiting. Humanism bloomed in the after. The drowned mentor's widow joining the board. Her son's first build a playscape. Eli returning humbled. Girlfriend's ring renewed. Matthew settled nearby. Cruises ranch bordering the village. Barbecues blending families. 50. Daniel walked slower, Theo's hand steadying. They adopted late. A foster teen, Alex, non-binary and knife-sharp, who apprenticed under Eli. "You built this for me?" Alex asked one dawn, framing a window. "For all the seats we lost," Daniel replied. "So no one sits alone." Kisses lingered now. Slower, deeper romance ripened, not rushed. Evenings on the porch, village lights twinkling. They traced constellations. Orion's belt a scaffold, Cassiopeia's throne a co-op table. One twilight, as Alex chased drones with cousins, Theo turned to Daniel. "Our story dramatic enough?" Daniel chuckled, thumb tracing wedding band. "Hook, climax, all. But the ending, open-ended. Human." Theo leaned in, lips brushing. "Best kind." And in the gathering dusk, with fireflies scripting light, Daniel knew acceptance wasn't a house built once. It was daily labor, loving through leaks, betrayals by yielding to dawn's repair. From trash to treasure, one nail at a time. The end? Not yet. Just the next course.